All right. We're going to finish this up. May be a shorter class than we usually have. Is this big enough for you to see it? Big enough? Okay. All right. So where we left off, I believe last time was, if I refresh that page, we've got it, story time. If I post a name in here and hit write story, it changes to story time with Bob Monster. All right, what we want to do is be able to take all of these form items, hit write the story, and have it write out this beautiful text, have inside the story bubble, and then have the form disappear. Right? That's our goal. Okay, so hopefully we can finish that off today. And that is down here in our script. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just delete that stuff that we commented out. I don't need it anymore. I don't think I'll be returning to it. Okay. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to have a way to put this stuff into the story bubble. So we've got to name that story bubble, right? I'm going to go ahead and start with document.getElementById. And I believe my item is called story bubble text. So, in quotes, story bubble text. There we go. And I'm going to use inner HTML, even though I know it's incorrect. It's secure because we are only using it in our classroom and nobody else is inputting form data. And then what we're going to do is we're going to collect together a giant variable that collects all of these together and writes it into a story. So I don't have that variable name yet. What I'm going to do is create a variable, and I'm going to call it my story. Okay, not strt, story. There we go, my story. I haven't defined that variable yet. So I'm going to try and keep all my variables together. I'm going to come up here, say variable, my story. Oops, God, I cannot type today. My story. And I'm going to leave it blank. Okay, oops. Just going to put a semicolon at the end of it. What that means is I've created a bucket in which to put stuff, but I haven't put anything yet. That's how you create an empty variable. All right, now we're going to start in on the story. So I want to put that probably, well, I could do it up here. That would be fine. Start creating my story. My story. I could put in here, my story equals Control P. Give myself a paragraph tag there at the very beginning. And then I could do, in order to keep building my story, I could say my story equals my story. God, I cannot type today. It's terrible. Plus some more text here. Okay, whatever that is. That's how I could build my story, line upon line. This is not as efficient as what I'm about to do. So I want to show you a little trick. Okay? And that is, you put the plus here, and then you no longer need that. What that means is my story plus whatever I had set the variable to, in addition to whatever I put in here. Okay, does that kind of sort of make sense? It's a shorthand way of saying whatever was before, add to it. Okay? So now we're going to say, oops, I don't want that in quotes. I want name 2. I want the name 2. That's the value, right? If you look up here, that's the value of that field, name 2. Name 2 plus move it up so you can all see it a little bit better. Was born in the soft, rich soil underneath an old space quote. Noun is one of the items that we created above, right? Right there. Noun is the value to that form field. Comma, to monstrous but loving parents.
You need a plus between now
I do. Thank you for that. I was going to go back and check it. I'm going to space after that. Okay, so yeah, I forgot the plus there. Okay, so anytime you add strings together, you've got to get those pluses in there, or it will create problems for you. Questions about what we just did there? I'll let you finish first. Good? Emery, you good? Okay. So let's go ahead and just try this. All right, so what we've done is we've said, okay, that story bubble, when we hit the button, the story bubble inner HTML is going to feed into it my variable, which I defined up here, and then I began giving more values to. Okay? So let's go ahead and just try it. I'm going to refresh the page. Story time with Gilbert. Another name. Gertie. Noun. Boot. All right. Then I hit write the story, and I should get this right here. Gertie was born in the soft, rich soil underneath an old boot to monstrous but loving parents. Did that work for everybody? Good for you. Yes. So let's go back. My story equals. Okay, that can't be quotes. Name 2 can't be quotes. Because it's on the string, it's that object above, okay? This has to be quotes. It's one in the softer soil underneath. Okay. Take that out of quotes. Yeah. Plus. I did, which is different. Yeah, have that comment good on the case. That's part of the string. And then that's got to go quotes. Now there's much information. Okay, let's give it a try. Test. So write some things in there. Anything will do. Okay, fine. Actually, can I try something?
Hey, Mike.
See if you can help her with that.
Okay. Lest we get too far into the weeds here. Okay, so the reason I am doing this right here is to take building up the story in bite-sized chunks. Right? I'm kind of doing it sentence by sentence. I could do one gigantic long string and write that story out. But what I have found is that it's really hard to troubleshoot it if I have one gigantic long string. So if I piece it up by sentence, it's easier for me to deal with. All right, so I'm just going to continue my story plus equals then find where I left off. Okay. When name2. So I'm reusing my variables as much as I desire. That's the nice thing about variables. First stuck its cute little plus inhuman body part. Oops. Up out of the soil. So its parents exclaimed, that's an I right there, right? Exclaimed. And I'm going to put a single quote in here because it's going to be a quote in the actual text. Exclamation. Did you find it?
I didn't find anything. I let her go ahead and do the text.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay. Plus. And then I'm going to use an exclamation point and end that quote right there. Okay? Questions about that? Is that making sense more or less? Okay. It's lather, rinse, repeat for a while. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and continue then. Right, when name2, oops, was just, this is just, it's been happening to me all day long. It is not my day. Number 1. Now, because I don't know whether you're going to use a decimal here or multiple years, I'm going to leave the option, year or years, to be read correctly when you read it. Old, comma, it bit its first something big, 1 in half. Period, space. Everyone was so surprised. After number 2 years, comma, when name 2
You just had to use the very black
I had to show you. I have to show. I'm compelled. Was okay. This is where we do a new thing. Okay. If we add number 1 and number 2 together, what we'll get is a string. So if we put one, let's say we put 32 in that number 1 field, and we put 3 in the next one. It should add up to what, 35? Okay. But it won't. It'll be 325. Because it's text. And it can't add text. It just puts them together, and it concatenates. Right? That's the right term. It adds 2 pieces of text together. So what we have to do is we have to tell it, wait a minute, this is a number, JavaScript. We have to deal with it in a particular way. So we're going to say my story, and we have to do a thing called parse int. It forces it to become a number.
So what if your user doesn't enter a number in the number place? Program breaks.
You not a number.
Yeah, it'll respond with an NaN. Yeah,
So
exactly.
So when Gertie was just not a number years old.
Yeah. So the way you would sort of handle that in JavaScript, and you would have to think about those situations. You'd have to say, okay, get that thing. If you put it into the parse int and it's NaN, put some default value in.
The other thing you can do is back up on your valid, put type equal number.
Yes. Yeah.
And enforce them.
It forces a number. That would be the better way to do it. Yeah.
I didn't worry
I forgot about that. Okay.
that at least helps. Then in the browser, at least it's on your side.
Yeah, exactly. Parse int number 2. Okay. It ate a or an something big 2. In just 3 bytes. This should be a new paragraph, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Oops. Into that paragraph. Go ahead and copy that one. We all knew name 2 had a an. So this is where we add the adjective. Plus future ahead. ahead of it. And we were right. Name 2 landed a career as an occupation round that puppy off and go ahead and add the last P in there. Why not? There we go. See any errors there, Mike?
No, obviously just jumped out at me as you typed it.
Say it again.
Nothing jumped out at me as you were typing it.
Okay.
You missed a space.
Did I miss a space? Where?
Right above your first alt. Right
After
Plus
blank
and
years when okay. Yeah, okay.
How do those spaces matter?
No,
They don't
it's
actually.
just readability. That's all. And readability is important.
That's why I use an editor and I just can go Control L. Reformat.
And it does it for you. Ah,
Yes.
that's cheating. That's totally cheating.
I have it also like
Hey, it's no cheating, it works.
for in the versioning and stuff.
Mhm.
It automatically goes through it too.
Yeah, that's lovely.
It is.
I would prefer that.
It always gets me when people start using really old headers like Vim or something that's from the 70s.
Oh my gosh.
Still,
Uh-huh.
they're using
Still, wow.
because they say it's better and use 98 and so on. Crap. So you don't.
Yeah.
That's,
It makes total sense to use it.
if you're doing it over and over, you're running into mistakes. Automated, but
Yeah.
the tools do it.
Right. Yeah. Okay, are we finished typing?
Almost.
Almost? Okay.
Last line.
All right. For those of you who have finished typing, go ahead and test it out. See if it works. And if it doesn't, open up the console and see where the errors lie. If you can remember how to do that. Can you see it? Is that better? A little bit higher?
Just type it in colors. Ah, that's what it was. It was just a refresh.
Every time I think I refresh it, it's like, no, yeah.
Me too. How you doing, Emery? There are some, but these tools can actually have they don't have. We actually, if you go and search for yeah. I think we're gonna have to continue on this. So, Emery.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll want to get these parts in. All right. So has everybody tested their stuff and it's more or less working? Awesome. Okay. So the next thing we have to do is to get the form to disappear when we click the button. That is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and go down to almost the bottom of my function here. And we're going to start with document, get element by ID, and then we've got to name the form. Anybody remember what the name of the form is? Here, there it is, story form. Okay, so let's go back, all the way back down to get element by ID. All right. This is where we actually work with JavaScript and CSS. So you access CSS the same way. And that is by the style object. Okay, so when you access the style object, you can get a hold of all of the styles possible to any particular object in HTML. And this one we want to say display equals none. Just double check it. Yep. Okay, so you can set the display to block, inline block, yada yada yada, but if you set it to none, it disappears. Let's go ahead and give that a try.
Just like in your CSS, you can put it on display.
Yes, that's exactly right. You just do it in JavaScript, right? All right. So if I put the some gobbledygook in here, what I should get is my story bubble to fill in and the form to disappear. So I say write the story, bam. That's the way it goes. That's exactly what I wanted, which is awesome. Now we want to make the rewrite the story work. Right, that button. Okay. Hey, this works. That's as much as I've got it doing right now. Okay. So now we've got to go back into our code, and I'm going to go back and look. All right. So I've got my event listener with the write the story click. That's working. If I go down here, I find my other button was down here. That's my rewrite story button. You're not asking a question, right? Okay, gotcha. Okay, so the rewrite the story function is only doing an alert right now. So what I want to do is I want to bring the display of the story form back. So I'm just going to copy paste that from there and change that to block. That makes sense, right? Display block. You've seen that before in CSS. And we also want to make the story bubble go away. Because if we didn't, I'll go ahead and just show it to you. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Right. The story, and I say, rewrite the story. Oh, dang. Right? My bubble needs to go away. If I'm going to be working in the form, my bubble needs to go away. So let's go ahead and make that bubble go away. Easiest thing, I think, is to just copy, paste, and then I set my story bubble. Which item is that? I want the whole story bubble. So that's that one right there. Story bubble. Set my display to none. Okay. So go ahead and try that. Try it in your browser. Tell me if it works. No, it doesn't. It just brings it back. So if I did that,
It doesn't write it the second time.
write the story, rewrite the story. So if I hit write the story again, whoa, goes away. Yeah. Yeah, story form, none. Gotta go through that process one more time. Okay, the first button does what I expect it to. Rewrite the story does what I expect it to. And then write the story again, bam, it goes away. So if you wanted to do this multiple times, do you know what you'd have to do to figure it out? What you'd have to, there's one thing we'd have to do to make it figure. No idea? Anybody have any guesses? Tricky. That's right. Okay. So what I have to do to make it redisplay, I know this is going to sound redundant, but what I have to do is I have to take my story bubble and make sure that it displays. It makes sense, right? It's a process. It does one thing after another, so we have to tell it, it works one time through, but in order to make it work a second time through, you have to remember kind of what's going on. We've made one thing disappear, and another thing disappear, and reappear, and we have to make both of them.
So you can't clear the fields when you...
Yeah, you can. I just didn't do it. I figured this was enough. It's a big enough bite for most of us.
So when you initially load the page, I don't think the story bubble and the rewrite word should even be on.
Okay, so let's go back here. All right. So
That
when
whole bottom bubble, it shouldn't show up until
that's right. That's right. Yeah, we've got one more thing to do, and that is when the page loads, we want to make that disappear. Okay? Let's see, is there anything else we have to do? No? Okay. So, Bunny, what do you think we would do to make that happen? Okay. Yeah. A couple ways to do it.
Is it an HTML file?
No, it'll be in the JavaScript.
I don't know.
Okay.
I would just comment out the div that has the story bubble. It would disappear.
My
Just to give you guys a hint, that's called rewrite the story
Good. I'm going to do this the quick and dirty way, just so you guys see it. All right. What I want is the story bubble to disappear. So I'm going to grab that. Now, this function only fires when I call it. But I could take that function, or I'm sorry, I can take that line outside the function, and it'll fire immediately. Does that make sense? Okay.
The other way would be just rewrite the story, parenthesis, semicolon. It does the same thing. It calls the function.
Yes, right.
And then it does both.
I suspect that the proper way to do this would be on using a listener event to make sure that everything has loaded first before I try and do it, but I don't know.
You're at the bottom of the picture, probably.
It's probably fine.
Yeah.
It's probably fine. I just would think about contingencies.
Or to see that script tag, it had to have already loaded and built it on.
Yes.
So you're good.
Probably good. Okay. So we'll go back and
It's gone.
et voila! Yay!
And it's gone. The other way, there's one more way to do it. You go into CSS and have display done.
That's right.
And then you just display it and undisplay it.
That's right.
That way, even if they have JavaScript turned off, at least it does this one.
Right.
The rest of it's not gonna work.
Yeah, the rest of it won't work.
And don't see stuff they're not.
So do you know what he's saying? So in the CSS file, once you got your work done, you would go back into the CSS, set the story bubble display to none, so when it loads the page, it's already gone. You don't have to do it in JavaScript. I actually prefer that way. What's that? Yes, that's right. And it would make more sense. Even if they turn JavaScript off and they look at this page, it makes more sense that the story bubble's gone. Right? Okay, so questions?
Can we go back to
To the code?
the... Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Where do you want to be?
That's
Good? Okay. Right. So unless you guys have questions, we're pretty much done. We're not gonna meet next week, right? So that should give you time to work on your final project. I will be available for questions if you need to. If you guys would like to meet, shoot me an email. I would be happy to do, whatever we need to do to make sure you get through it. But other than that, I'm just going to set you loose on your final project, and
Pretty much the final stretch.
it's the final stretch.
So there's no more class.
There's no more classes, right?